Welcome to Rob Schmitt Tonight. Vladimir Putin is certainly a complex nemesis for the United States. A former KGB agent, he's great at espionage, mind games, antagonizing. And he's shown this past year he clearly is not too worried about this guy. Can't imagine why. Earlier today, Putin announced a withdrawal of 10,000 troops from the Ukrainian border. It's not even 10% of the arsenal he has installed there, and yet everybody got all excited. Oh, goody. No more war. The question is, was there ever going to be one to begin with, assuming that there isn't going to be one? Was war the point? Or was Vladimir Putin just testing the waters to see how the United States and Germany would react? After one of the stupidest geopolitical moves imaginable, giving a country led by an evil dictator a pipeline and the ability to have total control over one of the most powerful forces for good in the entire world, that being Germany. In a meeting earlier today with German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, brand new to the job, Putin insisted at his big white table that Moscow was ready to negotiate. Some outlets are praising Olaf Scholz for being tougher on Putin than he has been of late. But at the end of the day, Scholz still has not threatened Putin's beloved pipeline, because Germany loves the pipeline too. And now Putin knows just how immense the leverage he has over Germany and NATO truly is. Now, when he'll use that to his advantage is hard to say. It doesn't look like it's going to happen this week. Maybe it still is. He's only pulling 8% of the forces off. But it does appear the situation is de-escalated somewhat tonight. Something the Biden White House likely has mixed feelings about. They're losing their distraction, just one of many reasons why a war in Ukraine could be great for them politically.
An invasion remains distinctly possible. That's why I've asked several times that all Americans in Ukraine leave now before it's too late to leave safely.
Okay, so distinctly possible is the new verbiage. It's a downshift from earlier warnings that invasion was imminent. Another interesting Biden moment from today, he actually criticized himself in part, and also Barack Obama, for how they handled Russia stealing Crimea back in 2014.
The United States and our allies and partners around the world are ready to impose powerful sanctions on export controls, including actions that we did not pursue when Russia invaded Crimea in eastern Ukraine in 2014.
More of Biden's about 11-minute update there before he walked out without taking a single question. And there he goes. And while it's good to see our leaders actually admit their mistakes and learn from their mistakes, you would hope, you still have to wonder how nobody inside this White House saw any of this coming. The Ivy League elites that comprise the current administration no doubt consider themselves among the smartest people in the world. And yet in 2021, they couldn't see what Donald Trump saw half a decade ago. Here's the former president in 2018 slamming Germany and NATO over Germany's reliance on Russian fuel.
I've been complaining about this from the time I got in. It should have never been allowed to have happened. But Germany is totally controlled by Russia because they were getting from 60 to 70% of their energy from Russia and a new pipeline. And you tell me if that's appropriate, because I think it's not. And I think it's a very bad thing for NATO, and I don't think it should have happened.
That's the guy that was colluding with Vladimir Putin. That's Putin's puppy right there. So they'll tell you. I mean, how ridiculous does the way that they frame him look when you see comments like that? And those are the moments that Trump made happen that nobody ever saw coming, that NATO couldn't believe when he talked that way to them, that the media was just astounded by the way he talks. He's saying the truth. Somebody finally saying the truth. How refreshing it was. Somebody talk to these idiots around the world and tell them the way things really are, because they live in a bubble and they always have. Well, Biden jumped in the White House, of course, and cleared the way for Germany to forever be under the thumb of Vladimir Putin, waiving the sanctions on the pipeline in the lead up to his first meeting with Putin. A nice big gift, a feeble-minded gesture of goodwill, another classic foreign policy moment from the same people that brought you the Iran nuclear deal and the Paris Climate Accords. Some of the most adeptly trained idiots in the world are running U.S. foreign policy. And now they're trying to fight back for some kind of leverage after emboldening the man that they screamed for 4 years was trying to destroy American democracy.
And when it comes to Nord Stream 2, the pipeline that would bring natural gas from Russia to Germany, if Russia further invades Ukraine, it will not happen.
I'm the tough guy. That's the guy that, oh, Putin doesn't want me in office. He's scared of me. Boy, I'll tell you what. What's interesting, Germany is not saying any of the things that Biden is saying. For as tough as Scholz was today, or I guess Reuters thought he was tough, he did not say that the pipeline was on the line again. And of course he didn't. His country needs Russia, needs that oil. And today, our president indicated that since our current White House was dumb enough to arbitrarily make the United States not energy independent as one of its first brilliant moves in the White House, an invasion of Ukraine could make our horrible gas prices even worse.
I will not pretend this will be painless. There could be impact on our energy prices. So we are taking active steps to alleviate the pressure on our own energy markets and offset raising prices.
So in the briefing room, this came up again, and Ms. Jen Psaki was stumped when asked the question.
Or is there any consideration to reversing some of the policies and going back to increasing U.S. energy independence?
I don't have anything to detail for you.
That means we're idiots and we know it. I mean, when you can't spin it at all, you're really in trouble. One funny idea Democrats have been thinking about is actually suspending the gas tax to try and make fuel cheaper in this country. It's not looking like it's going anywhere, but just think about that. You know, obviously Congress doesn't usually like to remove taxes, but just think about how incredibly stupid this looks. The same party that made gas expensive intentionally because gas is so bad and pollution is so awful and racist is now trying to remove a tax on gas to make gas as cheap as possible so that everybody can get as much gas as they want and drive all over Hell's Half Acre. These are the people that you let run your country. It's pretty amazing. A war could raise more than just gas prices, though. CNN is reporting the Russia-Ukraine conflict could send inflation to 10%. So not only could a war in Ukraine be a welcome distraction for the Biden White House, it could become a perfect excuse for problems this country already has. By November, Pelosi and company could run enough ads to convince Americans that gas prices and inflation are all because Putin invaded Ukraine. You know that's what they're going to do. That's what they always do. Nothing they ever say makes any sense. They're still trying to blame all the crime in this country on Republicans. I mean, that's how stupid they think you are. Millions of people would be dumb enough to believe this. They just blame inflation, blame gas prices on this war, and make you forget that it had happened long before this war ever started. And a war would also portray Vladimir Putin as the danger to democracy around the world that Democrats have been hyperventilating about since Hillary concocted her Russia collusion narrative 6 years ago. Think about all the things that a war in Ukraine could do for their agenda. Put Putin right there. Ooh, this is the scary guy. It seems clear tonight the Biden White House is all for a Russian invasion of Ukraine, which does make perfect sense when you think about how they've handled the situation thus far. They're not doing a lot to try to stop this. That's been one of the big criticisms. Why aren't they doing more to try to stop this? Why are they only saying something bad will happen once Russia goes in? Why are they just standing back, not using any of the leverage they have over Russia right now to prevent it from happening? Well, perhaps it's because they want it to happen.